Hello everybody, today I'm working on a 1991 Ford F-150. This is my truck. I've had it for about 10 years now. Basically the first step you want to do is run the truck for 5 minutes. So drive your truck into a place where it's gonna get its oil change and let it sit running for 5 minutes. And this is to pick up all of the oil, the crap that's stuck in the bottom of the pan, all the debris. It's basically going to be sitting in the bottom of your pan, and you want it to pick up all that crap. So once you do that, you can either get jack stands and jack up the front, or you could just crawl under it if you want to. It's up to you. I chose to use these because it looks like it's gonna make my life easier to use these ramps, these Rhino ramps. And you could get a set of those for I think 50 bucks brand new. I would try and buy some brand new because you don't know if they're cracked or not. So buying them used, I would try not to, because already they're not very safe. So next step we're gonna do is chock the wheels over here. So I got one there. I have one under the back right wheel over here. I've drove it up. I made sure that this is safe. It's not gonna come off. It's not gonna fall on me while I'm under there. Next thing you wanna do is take off this this drain cap. Mine's broken, but you take that off. And that's to let the oil drain a little bit better when we go under here. And we're gonna use a 9/16 socket, 9/16 hex socket. And we're gonna go under here, and right next to the oxygen sensor, the oil drain plug. It's over here, and I already have my oil pan ready. So just get one of these. The wider the better. This one's actually a pretty cheap one, and that's why it's so small. So I know when I loosen this oil drain plug, I need to be ready. I would advise wearing gloves, and a lot of people say that real mechanics don't wear gloves, but that's like saying real mechanics get burned. If you want to be burned, you can do that, but I prefer not to. So be ready, because this crap's gonna go everywhere. One of the things that I did that I forgot to do here, I got a how do you say, absorbent pad. So they sell them for like puppies that are training, or people in the nursing homes, or people that are disabled or whatever. They have these absorbent pads that they sell. You can find them in those stores like, what is it, like Ross, Dress for Less, or whatever. I mean, it depends on what state you're in, what place you're in has what stores, but basically the stores I'm talking about, they have discount clothes and discount curtains and crap, and you could go in there and basically you could buy those puppy pads or whatever. The puppy pads were like really cheap. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. You can see what I'm talking about over here. This blue one. And the reason gloves are good is basically so you don't get burned, because it gives you a layer of protection, something else that has to get real hot before the temperature reaches your hand. Now, of course, one thing that you're going to want to watch out for, because once you have the gloves on, you're going to feel like you're all powerful and you can't get burned. And one of the things you want to watch out for is the heat that hits your gloves. It's going to take a while to hit your hand, so try not to touch the oil at all, the hot oil at all if you can, because that heat's going to transfer through the gloves and into your hand in almost no time flat. So these pads here are good to absorb the oil, the excess oil. And then once you do that, you can, once you've taken the drain pan out, the the plug, once you've taken the plug out and misplaced it like I have, you can, yeah, here we go. So here's an important thing to note. This oil drain plug has a little gasket on it. See this little white gasket? And it's white on one side and brown or whatever on the other, but I'm not sure it was sealing very well. I don't know. In fact, oh, that's a problem, I think, is this thing has two on here. So mine was leaking, and neither of these little circles seems to be very good at being around this thing. There's like a lot of play basically between the inner diameter of the drain plug and the surface of the drain plug. But you want to observe this right here, and you want to make sure that this isn't stripped. See, you want to make sure it's very, very pronounced, the edges, because this oil drain plug, you don't want it to get stripped. It could get hard to get off. Ask some people who have had to remove them when they've gotten stripped. So once you've drained the oil, you want to make sure that the oil's draining real good and this part's off, and it'll make it easier because the air will escape through here like a gas can that has the hole on it or whatever. So I'm going to change my gloves, and then I'm going to put on a new set and have everything over here ready to go. And while that's draining, I'll get some new gloves over here, and I'll go and take off the oil filter. Now the oil filter is going to be on the driver's side of the truck, and on some vehicles it's easier to get to than others. And for those vehicles where it's a real pain in the butt to get the oil filter off, you want to get a K&N filter that has the nut welded on to the end, and it'll make your life easier. I think that those nuts are not very well defined. Like they're kind of, like the edges look kind of rounded or whatever. But on my Honda over there, on the Honda, the edges are not so well defined. So on the filter, but unfortunately, that's the only way I can really get it off. So once a lot of your oil's drained off over here, see it's barely dripping, you can kind of grab this, and the gloves give you a good grip. Oh yeah, so that came off really easy, which makes me think that the reason it was leaking oil is because I didn't put that thing on very tight. And the reason I didn't put it on very tight is because I was scared that it was gonna leak all the oil out. I mean, I didn't put it on very tight because I didn't want to strip the threads on the oil filter. So yeah, I apologize for that, truck, because that can increase the wear on your truck if you sorry, I'm looking for that oil drain plug. That can increase the wear on the truck if oil's leaking out and you don't have enough oil in there. So here I am pulling this thing off prematurely. It's just because I'm trying to rush for this video. But first you should put the oil drain plug in right here. You should put that in first before you take the filter off. Don't be dumb like me. So clean this clean this gasket off real good and make sure it's clean. This one actually looks pretty clean, so I'm gonna put it back on. I bought another one yesterday because I was worried that my gasket was bad on it, but I don't think so. I think it's actually pretty good. So these two things are draining right now. That's draining into that, and that's draining into that, the oil filter. What I'm gonna do while that's going on is I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna open my new Mobil 1 oil filter. This is supposed to be a real good one. So I bought all my oil change special at the same time. I bought oil for all my vehicles, and it comes with this oil filter. I prefer Mobil 1 synthetic, but you can use whatever you want. Royal Purple or whatever. I prefer synthetic now after hearing all the good stuff about it. Like, it can be thinner at lower temperatures for people who live up north. So you can get a little bit of new oil and put it around this little rubber gasket right here. And some of you, the oil filter may not come off so easy, so you want to be ready with the strap wrench, and you just put this around the old oil filter, and then the one that's still on the truck, obviously, and you tighten it, and you can hold it like this, and it gives you the power to turn the old oil filter and get it off. So good, I'm still recording here. So Now I have this one with the new oil on it, on the gasket surface here. I'm gonna hit the camera on there, make sure it's still okay. Good. So now I'm gonna go under here, and oh man, there's a yellow jacket nest in there. So you don't want to play with those guys. They're serious. So make sure you wear some real dirty clothing when you do this. So let's see, take this off the rest of the way and be ready, because quite a lot of oil can get out of there and splash on your face. So quickly replace it so no more oil runs onto you than has to. And they say don't use a oil filter wrench to put on the new oil filter, so don't. But I tighten it pretty tight by hand now that I know it's pretty hard to strip if you do it by hand. So real tight on there. And then this one's still draining. The oil drain plug over there is still draining. Now I'm gonna get this drain plug and I'm gonna put it over here. I'm gonna get it ready to be torqued. I'm going to get a torque wrench from my toolbox over here, and we're gonna go to 22 foot-pounds. Now, it's not completely necessary to torque down the drain plug, but some people over tighten the drain plug and strip the threads. So the most important thing about a torque wrench is to make sure, this is in a 1/2 inch by the way, make sure that we're in 22 foot-pounds, because there's a 4.9 liter 6-cylinder engine. So you see the line for 20, and make sure it says foot-pounds. On the other side it says Newton meters, and we don't want to use that. We want to use foot-pounds, and go to the line 20, and we're going to go to the 0 where it's at the 20, and then go to 2 and tighten this little nut at the end, and then we'll make sure it doesn't move very much. 22. So it's ready to go at 22, and then we're going to get an adapter here, and then we have a loss of torque through this thing. Maybe not that much, but so I'm going to put it on 23, because honestly a little bit more is not going to kill it. Okay, and I'm going to tighten this thing up real good, and then I'm going to go under here, and I'm going to put my drain plug in by hand. Okay, it's still dripping. I'll put it in by hand, thread it in by hand. Okay. And see, when you heat up the truck by letting it run for 5 minutes, letting the oil get real thin. So what you're doing is you're lowering the viscosity or the resistance to flow. So when you heat up the truck for 5 minutes before you let all the hot oil out and burn your hand if you're not wearing gloves because you didn't listen, you're making the oil thin, right? So tighten this here, and then we'll put the torque wrench on here. And it's a real pain because it knows I'm recording. So. And we'll hold the socket with one hand till it gets tight enough it starts grabbing on its own, and then make sure that we're still on 23 foot-pounds. And that we're not stripping the plug. And you heard that? That's 23 foot-pounds. Do it again. All right. So that's it. And when we're done down here, that part's on. The oil filter's on real tight by hand. We can, oh man, See, I wasn't very smart about that. I dumped all that oil, so now I'm gonna have to clean it. And you can use a cleaning product like Purple Power, like a strong detergent, to clean that up. First, wipe up what you can with a puppy pad. Then I'm gonna come up here, and if I'm not mistaken, this one takes 6 quarts of oil. So we're gonna take 4 of these, and then 2 quarts from the other container. And it's good if you have a filter, a funnel. It's good if you have a funnel. It's funny, I was looking at some of my other videos and I called several things a crescent wrench that weren't a crescent wrench. I called a combination wrench a crescent wrench, and I think I called a vice grips a crescent wrench. It's funny. So everything's a crescent wrench. So before you put in this oil, make sure that your drain plug and your oil filter are inside the bottom. So make sure you put your drain plug back in, and make sure you put your oil filter back in. And people who made that mistake don't make it again, unless they just like cleaning 6 quarts of oil off of their driveway. Because every gallon of oil that we spill is capable of making 1 million gallons of water undrinkable. So that's really bad for the environment. And if you don't care about the environment, then you should probably care about drinking oil, because that's not good for you. But if you don't care about yourself either, then I don't know, you're probably not changing your own oil. Let's see. So I think people who like to change their own oil care about their car. But I guess you don't need to care about yourself if you, I guess you don't, there's no correlation there between caring about your car and caring about your body. So this is going to be the 4th quart of oil here. And basically what you want to do, if you want to save some money, go into the auto parts store and ask them what they have on special, because you could just grab whatever. But a really good strategy, since you have these markings on the side of the bottle, a good strategy to save money on your oil is to buy the 5-gallon containers like this one. That's from my last oil change. So a good strategy is to have that. I left my other one inside, so I'm gonna go inside, get my 5-gallon container here. 5-gallon, 5-liter, 5-quart container. And I put 4 in there already. And what you can see here is, see, make sure I'm so, oh, okay, good. I have this one here. On the right, you have quarts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's no marking for 5, but basically you're gonna pour until there's only up to here left. So, okay. Tear that off. We're gonna pour until there's only 3 quarts. Oh no, wait, excuse me, let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna pour till there's only 3 quarts, because 5 minus 2 is 3. And we've already put in, yeah, we've already put in 4. So we wanna put in 1, 2. So right there, we're at 6 quarts in there, but I'm gonna put a little bit more. It's okay to put like extra half quart in there, because I'm gonna anticipate some burning oil and some leakage. So I'm putting 6.5 in there. You could just put 6 though, because that's what it calls for. But this one's been leaking oil lately, and I'm a little paranoid that I'm gonna run out of oil. So you can let that run a little bit. And then you're gonna put the lid back on here. Hopefully you can still hear me over all the crowing roosters. So put that on there. And then the next step is to check the oil dipstick to make sure that you put enough oil in there. So I'm gonna put this lid back on here. And the next step is to get up there, which is going to be a task. Let's see, there we go. Okay, I can reach it because this truck is pretty high up. So that's what these towels are for, to wipe your hand off. So my hands are covered in oil, so wipe your hands off, because this old oil has combustion products in it, and it's actually carcinogenic. So I know everything is a carcinogen, but it's still good to reduce your exposure to carcinogens. So we're gonna lower this in all the way after we wiped off the edge. I'm gonna come up here. Don't grab the very end, grab right here and look at it. It's wet all the way up to full, so it's gone past the full mark. And another thing you do when you do this is look at the other side. Yes, it's good to look at both sides. And you could see debris in there. Well, I think it's the dipstick tube actually has like some rust or crap in there. But see, it's past full because I added a little more than I was supposed to. So for me, that's good. Basically, if it's between add and full, the tips of the arrows, it's good. If it's on add, if it's to the left of the tip of the add arrow over here to the left, if it's in the between the tip and there, that means you need to add a quart of oil and then recheck it. And it's important to check the dipstick oil level when the engine it's been off for a little bit, because the oil flows from the bottom to the top. The oil pump pumps it to the top up here to the valve train, and then it falls down. So if all the oil hasn't dropped down to the bottom, you're going to be taking a false reading, and then you're going to be adding extra oil for no reason. So you don't want to do that. Thank you for watching the video. Like, dislike, comment, and please subscribe if you found this video helpful. And we'll be working on something else soon here. I'm going to go work on an electrical problem soon. So thank you for watching and have a great day.